Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name's Maddie and today I'm going to be reviewing the books that I read in 2022. So total I read 26. My goal I think was 12 because I've been in school so I didn't expect to read very much. But I made it to 26 books and I'm actually pretty proud of myself. I usually stick to about one book series a year and I read a couple actually. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the star rating I gave the book and my opinion on it if I can remember. I'm going to be honest with you, some of these I don't really remember. And it's not because they weren't good, I just, my brain only has so much capacity, so I kind of run out of space sometimes. Okay, so the first book I read is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, which most of you probably know what that is at this point, but if not, it's about this girl named Lily who runs a flower shop. She gets into a relationship with, I believe he's a neurosurgeon named Ryle, R-Y-L-E, not Riley. Apparently it's pronounced like Kyle, but with an R, so Ryle. Basically, just look up trigger warnings for domestic violence, is all I have to say. But they start to have problems and then she starts reminiscing about her first love, Atlas, and yada yada, whatever. It's a romance. Not my favorite. Like, I guess I didn't like it as much as all of the book talk girlies did, but it was okay. I think I gave it 3 stars. So 3 stars on my scale is like, I wouldn't read it again, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read. So it is what it is. But that's really all I have to say about that because I don't really remember much outside of a couple scenes, I guess. Next is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I kind of branched out into the romance genre this year and started with 2 of the most notable authors, and I should have just stuck to Kindle Unlimited, but that's besides the point. So Birthday Girl is about a girl named Jordan, and she moves in with her boyfriend and his dad, and her boyfriend start having problems or whatever. I don't know if I can like say the outcome of the story, but like it's okay. I don't want to spoil anything else, but part of the perspective is from the dad, so just keep that in mind. I also gave this one 3 stars. Like I said, it wasn't like the best thing I've ever read, but I mean it was a romance. I didn't really have much to gauge off of at this point when it comes to just like romance books, so 3 is not the worst, not the best. The next book I actually read on my honeymoon, and it is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. I finished out the Throne of Glass series this year, and oh, what a ride. 5 stars, obviously, but I, at one point, was crying on the beach in Cozumel over this book. Like, it was beautiful water, great weather, and I'm just bawling my eyes out because Sarah J. Maas. If you know, you know. I can't really explain the premise of this book either because it's the last one in the series and I would have to spoil literally everything to explain this point. So, read Throne of Glass. My favorite Sarah J. Maas series of all time, and then we'll get into that in just a second. But 5 stars. So since I finished that book on the cruise, I just so happened to have one with me, another book with me that had been sitting in my car that I think someone let me borrow once and I never read. And we didn't have Wi-Fi on the ship, so I couldn't download another book and just decided to read this one. It's called The Perfect Girl by Jilly McMillan, and it's about this girl who, like her parents hold her to super high standards and she plays piano. She had gotten into a really bad accident that left some of her friends dead, and that kind of has been causing problems in her life after. And the first part of the book, this is in the synopsis, so it's not really a spoiler, but the first part of the book, she's at a piano recital and this guy stands up and like makes a scene about whatever happened, and then by the end of the night, her mom is dead. It's kind of, this is more of a thriller. Well, it is a thriller, I guess, but I gave it 2 stars. It was okay, but it was like all I had on the ship, so I finished, but I don't know, it was just super predictable to me from what I can remember, and I don't know if I would have just like picked it up out of the blue. So I read some books in between these, but the next like big chunk is the ACOTAR series, which also I love. I still prefer Throne of Glass more, but I did start ACOTAR this year because I somehow convinced my husband to read all these fantasy books that I want to read, and then he has to sit there and wait for me to finish to be able to talk about them. and I had a couple other friends in our friend group that had also read them that were waiting for me to finish, so I jumped right into it. It took me a while to actually get into A Court of Thorns and Roses, like the first book, because the beginning is pretty boring. I have seen a lot of posts online about how people can't get into the book because the first one is very YA specifically, but it's just kind of like slow, you know? So I started reading the book on April 9th, and I remember I brought it in the bath with me and I started reading it, and I just couldn't really keep up with it, or I could keep up, but it just, I don't know. I just had a hard time getting into the book at the beginning. So I started on April 9th and then finished on May 13th, and I'm pretty sure that I read it like a majority of it in a day, but I don't really remember. 5 stars, obviously. By the end of it, I really liked it, and fell into the trap, which if you've read the series, I'm pretty sure you know what the trap is. So yeah, that started my journey into ACOTAR. Then I went straight into A Court of Mist and Fury, which also took me about a month to read. I don't know why. I don't know why it took me so long, but I guess because it was a longer book, and like you're kind of really getting into the meat and potatoes at this point. That was probably why it took me so long. 5 stars again. In between that and A Court of Wings and Ruin, I read False Witness by Karen Slaughter. So usually what I tend to do is I'm reading a physical book or an ebook, and then I listen to an audiobook in the car. So it takes me a long time to finish the audiobooks depending on how much I'm driving and stuff, and usually to and from work isn't that long. So I started this one on July 3rd, finished on July 9th, I think. Well, I listen on 2 times speed as well, so it goes a little faster than normal. Well, not 2 times speed, but somewhere between 1.5 to 2. This one's really good. It's another thriller. It's about these 2 sisters, and one of them's a lawyer, and she basically has to defend someone from her past, and it kind of involves her sister. And I can't really say too much without spoiling it, but it's a really good book. You should pick it up. I gave it 5 stars. Next is A Court of Wings and Ruin, another 5-star read. Once again, probably, I don't know. I don't know if I prefer this or the second book in the series to be my favorite, but I like this one specifically because of the war. Like, this is where everything picks up and things get exciting. Well, I mean, things had already been exciting, but you know what I mean. So, yeah. I mean, you just gotta read the series. I really recommend it, so you should. Next is where I started figuring out Kindle Unlimited, and for whatever reason, the first KU book that I read, I decided to be Den of Vipers. Look at your trigger warnings, my friends. So it was okay. I gave it 2 stars, and at the beginning I was like really feeling it and I liked it, and then midway through it really just like lost my interest, and I forced myself to finish because I cannot for the life of me DNF books. I just can't do it. I can't. And so I forced my way through it, and then by the end I just I wasn't really having it anymore. There were 2 characters I really liked and 2 that I disliked, and I didn't, so like I almost wanted to skip their perspectives every time the chapter came up because, but like I knew going into it that it was a dark romance, and I knew like kind of some of the things that happened, not specifically, but like I knew what I was getting into, and it's not that was bad for me. It was just like the writing seemed to just kind of go downhill by the end of it. So I gave it a 2-star. I also probably wouldn't recommend it to a lot of people because of some of the trigger warnings and stuff in it. Like, it's a lot. So the next book that I read was another audiobook by Karen Slaughter, and it was The Silent Wife, which this one I gave 5 stars as well. It is about a detective essentially and his girlfriend who is a medical examiner, and it kind of follows them investigating so the medical examiner, her ex-husband, is a cop that died, and the guy that got convicted of killing the cop says that he is not guilty, and so the detective has to kind of like figure out what actually happened and try to like see if he really is guilty or not, and because he said that he got framed by a police officer. So it's really good. That's all I remember. My cat's trying to climb. Oh, she is climbing through the blinds. Great. But 5 stars. A Court of Frost and Starlight. All I have to say about this is if you don't want to read it, don't, because it doesn't really matter. A lot of people like it because it gives you a better look at the characters and their natural habitat. I don't care. It was a waste of my time, honestly. Like, it's not that the writing is bad. There was nothing intriguing to like keep me interested in this book. It's like 230 pages. There's one specific part of it that you would figure out in the next book anyway, so it's whatever. But my husband didn't even know that existed, skipped right over it, and didn't miss a single thing. So 3 stars. Finally, A Court of Silver Flames, 5 stars again. I like Nesta. I have liked Nesta. I don't think there's really characters I don't particularly like from the series, but I'm really glad we got Nesta's perspective from everything. But I have heard a lot of people say, and I agree, that I feel like it kind of gave me a different perspective on how I feel about the 2 main characters in it, because you see them from someone else's perspective. Like, I don't like them as much, I guess, and it wasn't because of what they did to Nesta, but I don't know, something about it just, I don't know, it doesn't sit right. I don't know. Like, if I read the first 3 again, it wouldn't affect me. It's just like from here on out, from other people's perspectives, I'm not expecting to like super enjoy them. I also am upset about the thing with the person, like the big part of the end of this book, because I feel like they won't be able to do cool stuff anymore. And we all know how we feel about that trope. So that's really all I have to say about that one. Next, I read the entire Mind series, which this was 5 books long, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It was so good. It's about this chick who is a serial killer, and she starts dating an FBI agent, and she knows that he's an FBI agent, but he doesn't know that she is a serial killer that he's investigating. So she kind of has to, she like keeps murdering people in hopes that he doesn't figure out that it's her. And so the reason that she's murdering people is because her and her brother were like raped and beaten when they were teenagers by some people in the small town that they lived in, because their dad got accused of raping and murdering a girl. And so I guess they wanted to take the punishment out on them or something, and they raped and beat them, thought they both died. Well, her brother died, but she didn't, so she changed their name, comes back as a serial killer, and murders and tortures them all. Top tier. Also, they're like novellas, so the longest one I read was probably like 190 or 170 pages, so super quick read. I highly recommend, 5 stars across the board. Okay, so this one I'm having kind of a hard time remembering, but it's called Pretty Girls, also by Karen Slaughter, and I did give it 5 stars, I think. Hold on. I gave it 4 stars. So it's about these 2 sisters whose younger sister went missing. Oh, it's coming back to me now. Their younger sister went missing when they were teenagers, I guess, and so kind of like set out to figure out what happened to her. That's really all I can say and all I remember. I do know that I liked it, but trigger warnings, I think. Then before it got popular, I read The Perfect Marriage, which I apparently didn't rate, but I would give 5 stars. It's about this lady who's a lawyer, and her husband is cheating on her in their lake house that they own together, that she pays for because he's an author and he's not actually writing, but he says he's going out to write, but he's not writing, he's cheating on her. Anywho, so he leaves one day and gets accused of murdering his mistress because she's found in his lake house dead. And so the wife represents her husband in court to like prove that he's innocent. Then I started the Crescent City series, which also took me forever to get into. Like, I distinctly remember talking to several people in my friend group and explaining to them that I did not like the book because for whatever reason at the beginning, like the way that the wolves are, it just reminded me of furries for some reason, which no offense to furries, I couldn't get past that. It's also very slow, very, very info dumpy, and I felt like it was way too much to keep up with. But if you decide to read it, In the first 100 pages, they give you a lot of information, and guess what? It doesn't matter later. You will be introduced to everything one by one as it goes on. Just, you gotta get past that part. But both the House of Earth and Blood and the House of Sky and Breath, it doesn't pick up till like 75 to 80% in, so Crescent City's probably the third on my list of Sarah J. Maas series. But I also have such a special place in my heart for Throne of Glass. So, I don't know. Crescent City was good. I gave the first one 3 stars. Like I said, super slow. And then I gave the second one 4 stars. So it got a little better, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next book. But it just, like, I need more to happen in the middle of the book and not have to wait till you're 80% through a 600 or 700 page book to be able to be interested in what's going on. In between those 2 books, I listened to A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair on audiobook, and I think I would have preferred this if I had read it physically. I gave it 3 stars, and it wasn't that it was bad per se, but I think it's the audio that ruined it for me, because I'd never listened to romance on audio before, so listening to like sexual scenes on audiobook was really weird and kind of uncomfortable. And the way that the narrators were acting out the scenes, like, props to them for like sticking to the character, but I did not like it. I think that I would have liked it more if I had just read it physically. I liked the storyline, and I know there's more books in the series, but at this point, like, I have no interest in continuing. The 4th series I read this year was the Ravenhood series, and I put this on my TBR on Goodreads because I heard one person recommend it. I don't even remember who it was, and I didn't remember if it was fantasy or romance or anything, because I don't like to read the synopses of books. I just like to read them so that I don't have to, so I don't know what's going on. So I started it. First one, super romance heavy. Loved it. It was so good. Gave it 4 stars. Then I moved to the second book, which these are once again books where stuff does not happen till the very end of the book, but they're shorter than Crescent City. So, anywho, I gave the second book 4 stars as well. This one was more thriller-esque, I would say. Like, there's less romance in it and more, I don't really know how to describe it. Like, you kind of have no clue what's going on, and you're figuring it out with the characters as the book goes on. And then the last book, which is the 3rd book, I liked the least because one of the characters throughout the series spends the entire book like trying to make up for things that he did in the first 2 books, and you get his perspective on it, and honestly, it sounds so like, poor me, poor me. He's very manipulative, like he gaslights her and stuff, and then like they get together at the end. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. But it is what it is. As the series as a whole, I enjoyed. I'd probably give it a 4 star. But that last one, and after the first book, like the romance portions of it like significantly decreased, and the ones in the first book were so good, and I just wish it had continued like that, but it like dumped off. And the last book that I read was The Last Housewife. I had seen Olivia Rizalate read this book and recommended it, and I actually liked it. I gave it 5 stars because it was mind-blowing. I really did. Listen, when I read thrillers, I don't look for the plot twists. Like, I just let it happen. And that one got me. It sure did. And basically, so it's about a girl who was like kind of in this weird sex cult when she was in college, and she gets out of college, and then like her friends keep coming up dead that were also there with her, so she goes to like investigate it and gets like caught up in all this whole bunch of kind of terrifying things, and kind of gets like sucked back into the cult for a little bit. But so I would say my reading overall for the year was pretty good. There wasn't a whole lot of books I didn't like. I don't think I really read much that was lower than 3 stars, but otherwise it was 3, 4, and some 5 stars. I read ACOTAR, Crescent City, the Mind series, and The Ravenhood, so 4 different book series this year, which is very surprising to me because I'm usually like a 1 series a year type of person, but I was digging it. My dog is starting to get impatient with me and is starting to play with her toys, so I apologize. I'm trying to wrap this up as fast as I can. Overall, enjoyed it. I'm sorry I'm not great at like giving the synopses as I go. I tried to read the Goodreads ones and then got caught up in the video, and I don't remember every detail from the book, so it was kind of hard to review them. But anywho, that was the 26 books that I read in 2022. I have a goal of 24 or maybe 30 for this year that I hope that I can complete. If you have any book recommendations or video recommendations or anything else that you'd like to share with me, make sure to leave it down below. Like this video, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next video. Bye.